You know, it feels strange to say this, but I don't think I've ever felt proud or ashamed of being British. I wonder why. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. And I apologize, I've kind of been off the radar, not publishing so many videos recently, just because I've been swamped with getting all of my things into this new apartment, as you can see. And what do you think of my new curtain? It's quite cute, isn't it? It's quite stylish. I mean, this is actually called a noren. It's a Japanese curtain, but interestingly, not so many people use them these days. But I just like the design. It's just to make this place feel a bit more like home. So, yeah. Today, I wanted to talk about something that is incredibly important to many people, and that is their national pride, or their cultural identity, so to speak. So, for example, I am a British English teacher, and I am 100% British, although I may not look like it, because my mother is from Hong Kong and my father is from Malaysia. And they moved to the UK when they were young adults, and I was born there along with my two older brothers. And I've always had a weird feeling when it comes to cultural identity or nationality. And the reason why I felt that something was out of place, something wasn't quite right, is actually very simple. It's because I was British, I was born in the UK, but I didn't look British. Now, nowadays, there are many cultures, different people from all over the world who were born and raised in the UK, like myself. So nowadays it's not so bad, but growing up, especially in my primary school or secondary school days, now, of course, after growing up in the UK, I've gotten used to it, but it still feels strange. Because at home, I used to speak a lot of Chinese with my mother, and we would mix English as well. But we had an Asian dinner, rice with vegetables, lots of fish. But when I went to school, when I went to college, everything outside of my home was British culture. And so I didn't know whether I felt more Chinese, as because of my home environment, or whether I was British because I was going to school in Britain. And yeah, it was just a very strange feeling. But there's one thing that I've always wondered, always wanted to know. When it comes to our identity, how much of our identity is determined by our nationality? Because after studying psychology in university, I've learned that our identity is strongly connected to the groups that we belong to. Now, one of those groups can be nationality, but it can also be other things, like your religion. It could even be something simpler, like a tennis club that you're a part of at school. And this is why, when somebody says something bad about your religion or your baseball team, even though they're not talking about you directly, because you are a part of that group, it's a part of your identity, you feel annoyed or irritated about that comment. By the way, when it comes to loving your own country and being proud of the fact that you're a member of that country, do you know what we call this? This is called patriotism. Patriotism is the fact that you are proud of being a member of that country. If you love your own country, you are a patriot. A patriot is the type of person who might say, yes, I am so proud to be British. We have wonderful places such as Buckingham Palace, Stonehenge, and we have great music, Oasis, the Beatles, and our food is amazing. However, it's always interesting to see the differences in what people love and hate about a country, comparing locals and foreigners. Because often, if you ask locals, what do you love about your country? What is unique about your country? Often they won't be able to give you a detailed answer. Everything to them is just normal, or they take it for granted. But if you ask a foreigner who has maybe moved to that country or traveled there many times, often they do that because they love the country and they're so fascinated by the culture. And have you ever experienced when a foreigner comes to your country and sometimes it feels like they know a lot more about your culture and your country than you do? It's something that I've seen quite a lot and experienced myself. If somebody asks you, what do you love about your country? Can you list off 10 things and speak for like 30 minutes in depth about your culture? Because I don't think everybody can do that. And the interesting thing is, I think patriotism depends on the generation, your background, and the country that you're living in. I don't know if this is true, but I get the image that, for example, America, you will find or see many people who love their country. They think their country is the best on earth. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. And being patriotic can be very good. But the thing I find really interesting is the opposite side of pride, and that is feeling ashamed. Being proud and ashamed of your own country are two sides of the same coin. But why do we feel ashamed when somebody else who represents our country, maybe it could be, on the internet, you see somebody from your country doing bad things in another country? Why do we feel ashamed when somebody from our country does something bad on the internet? If I give you an example, somebody from your country goes to another country in the world, maybe Japan, for example, and they record a video, a TikTok of them like dancing on the road. But then it's quite dangerous. They're causing trouble for other people. And when you look at that, you're the same nationality and you feel embarrassed that they are doing such a, terrible thing on the internet. But it's not you. But just by sharing the same nationality, you feel embarrassed or you feel ashamed. Have you ever experienced this before? Now, in all of my videos, I talk about this quite a lot because it was my major in university, but when it comes to human psychology, we as humans love to make connections between two things. It helps us process information. For example, red equals love, passion, or blood. Blue is associated with the cold, rain, sadness. And this is the same situation here. Whenever we see somebody doing something online, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, one of the things that stands out the most or comes to mind first is their nationality. And over time, as we get more chances to interact with that nationality, whether it be talking to people face to face from that country or seeing videos about that country's culture or their people, we start to get an image of that nationality, what we call a stereotype. But the thing is, stereotypes can be incredibly dangerous because it makes us assume things, that is, to think things with no evidence. And I think everybody knows this, or at least they feel it. They know that if another person from the same country does something bad online, it also makes them look bad. because people will start to associate that bad behavior with their country, the country that they are also a part of. But this works both ways, because when somebody says something good about your country, when they love the food, the festivals, the clothing, and they say, I love your country, I love this, this, and this, then you feel happy and proud to be associated with those things as a member of that country. But the weird thing is, we all know that even within one country, everybody's different. In Japanese, there's a phrase, junin toiro, which kind of means like 10 people, 10 colors. Everyone's different. But even though we know stereotypes are not always accurate in real life, they can still have a strong effect on our unconscious mind. Now, there was a really fascinating news story that stood out to me recently about inbound pricing in Japan. Now, if you don't know, inbound pricing is talking about setting a higher price for goods, such as food or products, for foreigners only. But they have a lower price, or the regular price, for Japanese locals. Unfortunately, right now, Japan is not doing so well economically because of the weak yen, and many foreigners are taking advantage of this, especially from the States, where the dollar is much stronger. And that's why we have a problem with over-tourism at the moment. So, many businesses are taking advantage of this. They are setting a higher price for the foreigners for something simple like, I don't know, a bowl of ramen. Now, normally here in Japan, a bowl of ramen should normally cost maybe 1,000 yen. Of course, it depends on the brand or the chain, but generally 1,000, which is maybe £5 British. But foreigners coming to Japan and wanting to try this delicious bowl of ramen, which is much better than anything they can find in their country, they are happy to pay 2,000, 3,000 yen, something that is double or triple the price. Maybe one, because they don't know about the average price of what ramen should cost, or two, they just don't care. Because it's affordable for them, even though it's more expensive than usual for Japanese people, compared to their home country, the price might not be that different, or it might still even be cheaper. But what was interesting was not the situation itself, but more a reaction from one of the Japanese locals. There was an interview with a junior high school Japanese girl, and if I remember correctly in the interview, she said that she felt really ashamed that Japanese companies or restaurants were trying to take advantage of these foreigners and the strong dollar and, try to rip them off. In other words, to kind of take their money unfairly by setting a very high price. Now, when I first heard this news, I was thinking, why does she feel ashamed? She's not a part of this company. She doesn't belong to it. But after thinking about this podcast and doing a bit of research, I started to realize that it's because of the association, their connection, that is, being from Japan. Because at the end of the day, whether it's a single person or a larger organization, everyone is a representative of that country. And when a larger group like these businesses are doing bad things, I can't really say it's necessarily bad because they're just trying to make money, but a lot of people might disagree with their double pricing, the inbound pricing system. And although I can't say that I feel completely patriotic as a British person, I think I can start to understand why people feel proud of their country and why, even though it's someone else, when another person from the same country does something that makes their country look bad, puts it in a negative light, then I think I can understand where that frustration comes from. So I think that's about it for today, but I hope today's episode kind of made you think a bit more about your own culture and how people see you and your country. And are you a patriot? If somebody asked you about your country, what would you say are the things that you're proud of or ashamed of? Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening. Good luck with your English studies, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.